Hi everyone, welcome back to Youth Corner Podcast Jeunesse. I'm Emma, and today for this season's finale episode, we are sitting with a very special guest as well, as all the guests are, but this time we're with our very own Melissa, who is also a 4Korners employee and who has a very unique perspective on what we do here due to having been a 4Korners kid. So that is just one of many things that we'll be talking about today. So Melissa, can I ask you to, even though I've said your name already, can I ask you to tell me your first name and your preferred pronouns, please?
So my name is Melissa. My preferred pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. And so Melissa, what is it that you do here? What is your official title here at 4Korners, and what exactly does it entail?
So I am an activity coordinator. I run a social and emotional learning program for elementary school kids. So I work in the schools, and I also run a tiny tot program for the little ones from ages 3 to 5. And that's just, it's a drop-off program to try to get them independent and kind of separated from mom and dad. Okay. But yeah, so I'm very hands-on. I do a lot of like the group work here at 4Korners.
Nice, very nice. Well, and I've definitely encountered you a few times on the job too, so I can tell that it's a pretty high energy position that you do here, and there's a lot of energy output going into that.
Definitely depleted. I love it so much, but I'm very tired. I love my naps afterwards.
Oh yeah, I bet. So how old were you when you were participating in 4Korners programming back when you were a kid?
So when I was a kid, 4Korners wasn't here. It was like a block over, actually. And I was about, I'm not entirely sure my age. I was in elementary school. It could have been, I think, grade 4.
Okay.
So I might have been, 9, 10-ish. And my mom had just kind of suggested going to like a program, and I didn't really know what it was about, to be fair. Now that I'm older, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, it was for social, social aspect. I guess I was struggling a little bit socially in school. So I had attended a program to help with like social skills, and we did like a lot of games through play, and I feel like it's the best way to teach kids too. So I really enjoyed myself. I remember some of the activities still that we did. I actually do a lot of the activities with the kids nowadays.
That's what I was going to ask, is like how much has carried over from the time that you were a kid in those programs to what you're doing now? I imagine it's not the exact same program by any means, because it's been a while.
I don't think it exists anymore, the program
yeah,
that
exactly.
I was in,
but like, what elements have carried over?
I think for me, and it might not be specifically about the program, it's more the welcomingness, like the warmth of 4Korners. I feel like 4Korners always had that warmth, and is very community based and whatnot. So even back then as a kid, I felt so comfortable coming to 4Korners, which I think is really cool. And then specifically, there's like this activity with eggs that we did, and the guy who did it at the time, I forget his name, but he like really did it justice, where he paired us up into groups, and he gave us an egg, and he's like, name the egg, draw like an egg face on the egg, and then he gave us like random materials, and he's like, okay, try to create like a rocket ship or like something that will protect the egg. He's like, because we're gonna go out back and we're gonna throw the egg onto the ground.
I remember doing this in high school.
Yeah, but I didn't know that this man literally had a slingshot, and at the time where we were right next to it was a bar at the time. So the eggs would like go flying. Literally none of them survived. My egg's name was Chicky. He died.
So what exactly, or rather in retrospect, what do you think the purpose of that activity was?
As funny as that was, I think that the purpose of that was to be able to work in a group and to work with others, and because we were paired up and we had a certain amount of time to prepare like the safety bag for the egg. So it was really about learning how to communicate and to work with others and work with your peers. So it's like a lot of fun, but there's also a purpose to the play-based learning. So like if I didn't like how my partner was doing something, then I'd have to talk about it or I wouldn't, and then I would not like it, So there's a lot of like learning opportunities that come out of it through play-based learning, but there's yeah, it was. So I think in that case, it was really just being able to work through natural issues that kind of came up with making like an egg safety bag.
Yeah, yeah. That's so funny too. That's you jogged my memory. I remember doing that exact program, but I was in high school. I think it was in secondary 2 science class, which again, as I always say, if anybody is listening from outside of the Quebec system, secondary 2 in Quebec is the equivalent of grade 8 in non-Quebec high schools. Yep. But I do remember doing that, and I remember it was exactly that. It was kind of teaching the rewards and consequences of communication with a team partner.
And we only got one egg, so if we broke that egg,
then you're done.
That's the egg that you got. You killed your egg already. Like
that's very interesting. I'm surprised that they were doing that kind of project so young, but it definitely makes sense, and it's fun and it's funny, and you talk about play-based learning as well so too. Important. Yeah. It's so important, and I think I would even argue adults still need play-based learning. Have you ever set a group of adults out into one of those play palaces, with the climbing walls and the bouncy palaces? But I've done that before, not quite as an adult, but as an older teen. It was so cathartic. I think it did like a hard reset in my brain. And I think more and more people need to experience that. Yeah, and we're not kids for very long in our life. So I noticed that I find kids are trying to grow up too quickly. Yes. So I do think it's important to bring that side, and then especially because I work with kids, so I'm a kid. I'm a big kid at heart. I don't think I ever truly grew up. Responsibility wise, yes, but of course. but other than that, so no. But I do think it's cool to just how I've been around 4Korners for so long. I know I worked also with Panda BLSO. Right. Yeah. And at the time, we were renting the space from 4Korners, so we were in really close quarters or close contact, because I'd run groups for Panda and in the rented space for 4Korners, and so a lot of times I'd see the secretary, and we'd have and it just so that people listening know, because it might be something that's of interest to some people. Can you give us a brief rundown of what Panda is and what their relationship with 4Korners is? I will do my best, because I was only a part of a little portion of it. So Panda is, from my knowledge, from what I know, Panda has a lot of different workshops for the English-speaking communities as well. So they're really great service. They hit a lot of spots. I can't go on about everything. No, but of course. Specifically, I worked in a program called Reading Detectives, which is a lot of group work as well. And what we did was we helped literacy skills and social skills through play-based learning. So a lot of reading games, a lot of social games, circle games. So if ever you have a child that's struggling with reading and writing and the social aspect, which I think unfortunately a lot of kids are struggling socially these days. Yes. Reading Detectives was honestly this is a specific program. It's a Panda, but this was a really great, honestly, a really great experience, and the kids have a lot of fun too, because it's not we're not telling them sit down and journal for. Exactly. It's giving context to why they're having to do these activities. They're using all of their senses, which is important because kids they're not using their senses as much. I'm gonna blame the internet. I'm addicted to the internet as much as everyone. As am I. But I do feel it's an issue, and we're not outside as much. We're not in the dirt. Yeah, I would say. Yes, definitely blaming, internet and cell phones and things like that, because they were an unknown quantity that came into our lives as children, very, very rapidly before there was any research or legislation around them as well. And we're only just starting to get to that point. But on top of that too, I feel especially when we're looking at social and emotional learning, the pandemic definitely left a blow on that concept as a whole, and it was already something that I think if a lot of families were struggling with organically, but then with the pandemic on top of it, I think it likely really aggravated an already difficult situation. when did you start with 4Korners as an employee?
Oh, okay. So it's been about 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
So I'd say January 2024, maybe, no, 2023.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm really bad with like, but
no. But so like within, so you were
Yeah.
definitely starting here around the time that the kind of like the COVID fallout, if you will,
Yeah.
was starting to become really
Absolutely.
apparent with little kids.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you've noticed in particular that, you know, either gets addressed in the programs that you're helping facilitate, or that you've noticed and has yet to be addressed, or that you would want people to be a little bit aware of that they might not be aware of at home?
Like about kids?
Yeah.
I think, and obviously this is like my personal opinion.
Yeah,
now,
of
so
course,
like
of
do
course.
with what you will.
Yes,
like
this is very much like an
floats your
informal
boat,
kind of-
out there. But I think that kids these days don't allow themselves to be bored.
Yeah.
It's the constant gratification, the constant like I need to get that fix of dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's sad because through boredom you have the most creative ideas and
Yeah.
your imagination goes wild. So I think these days it's just that they don't allow themselves to have to sit in that boredom, and it's so important. And then there's this idea that like it's the parents' duty to entertain. When
Yeah, that's a good point.
when like, and for me at least, when I was a kid, it was never my mom's job to entertain me. And I'm not a perfect person at all. Like, I know that there's times where I was inside when I could have been outside, you know. But it was never her job to entertain me. It was my job to do that. So, and I do feel like kids these days struggle with their creativity and their imaginations. Because they don't like let themselves be bored. They constantly need something. They need, what are we doing next? For example, I took the kids, like elementary school kids, to a park, and they're like, well, what do we do now? Be a kid? Go run in the
fun.
park? I don't know.
Be
Like,
free.
do I have to create a whole game or something
Yeah.
every time?
Yeah. Well, that was it's funny that you bring that up too, because we both work with youth.
Yeah.
That's one of the, even though I work in networking and partnership initiative in 4Korners, just through the podcast and a bunch of other activities and programs that I'm involved with, I'm often working with youth as well, but I'm working with the teenagers. So, about a decade above a lot of the age groups that you're working with. And what I find really fascinating about this is that they're aware of exactly what you're saying. When they're that young, they're not necessarily actively aware of, that they're bored. Maybe they don't understand what, like, they would know the word, but they don't necessarily understand what being bored is and why we get bored. Whereas now, 10 years on, when they're teenagers, they're aware that this is a problem for them and that they're struggling. Like, even I recorded another episode yesterday as well with 3 high schoolers, and that's what they kept saying, is that they know that they're stuck in that rut. They just don't know how to get out of it. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why the kind of work that you do at 4Korners is so critical, is that it's starting to address that issue head on at the earliest age possible, for the hope that when they hit their teen years and when their brains are really in that critical moment of development, that they have that background of social emotional learning and of just kind of being able to conceptualize why they're feeling what they feel and how to deal with it. And to make peace with boredom, because you're right, boredom can be incredibly dangerous as a human experience, but it can also lead to
these incredible opportunities too.
Exactly. So that's one thing. Like and I've definitely encountered, like I said earlier, I've encountered you working before, and I see how the kids react to what you and the other facilitators are doing as well, and it's very clear that it's working. Like, obviously you can't necessarily know exactly what the outcome is going to be, because the reaping of those results will only come with time. But to see kids just go and play and be allowed to just play and be encouraged to do so, that makes that it gives me a little bit of confidence in what is to come, because, you know, and we've talked about this before too. Like, myself and my sibling were both very lucky to, this sounds so crazy to say, we were very lucky to have dial-up internet at our house until we were like well into our teens. Because
I'm like thinking it's not like a landline. I'm like, it's
we had a landline.
Yeah, I know. I had a
like,
landline too.
The dial-up internet where there was like that crazy tone.
Yes,
that would scream through the mic at you. Yeah, exactly. And so we were lucky to have that because it forced us to cope with our boredom.
Yeah.
Rather than just giving us easy outlets.
Yeah.
And and you know, and again, like you always have to like take it with a grain of salt and know that you're not a perfect person, but you can still look back at your experiences and think like, oh, I was really lucky in the long run. Yeah. So it's I have confidence that the little ones that you work with now will have a good chance at being able to mitigate their own boredom later on.
I so hope. I try my best. Working with kids, it's always chaos. You don't know what type of chaos, but I love it. Don't get me wrong. It seems like I'm not against it, but it is like, it's very much chaos. And I am the type of person where I really like to be present with what they have to say.
Yes.
And socially, I feel like there is like a lack, like there's something missing. There's a lot of COVID kids, and sometimes I'll be in group and there's like 6 of them trying to talk to me all at once.
Yes.
Or I'm talking to someone and one will just like kind of come in front of me and then start a conversation. I'm like, I'm talking to someone? Yeah. Like right now?
Yeah.
Like literally in the middle of a conversation.
And it's not coming from a place of
exactly.
rude. That's what I've noticed as well. Because I also, during the pandemic, I was a substitute teacher for several years during the pandemic. And one of the places that I often worked was an elementary school. And I was temporarily a homeroom teacher for a grade 3 group. And that was exactly it too. It's
not malicious at all.
It's not malicious whatsoever, but it's mind-boggling when you first experience it, because you start to reflect on your own childhood and you start wondering,
absolutely,
like, did this exist when I was there? Because it wasn't that long ago in retrospect.
No.
But by the same token, it's that question of, was it like this and I'm just looking at my past with rose-colored glasses, or
of course,
has there actually been a major change?
Right.
But so in that case then, and especially speaking from like a professional context as well, and how you deal with that kind of situation in your job, if you are in a situation where you've got 6 to 8 small children vying for your attention all at once, and it's not coming from a place of being rude or malicious, how do you personally manage that?
I'm like thinking about it now. I just want to validate them. Because whatever they have to say, regardless of what it is, to me, it's important. So I always tell them, I'm like, okay, wait, what you're saying is important, and I want to hear you. I want to take the time. So can you give me 1 second? Because I want to give you my full attention. Yeah. For me, that's important. Well,
because that's how we're. It sounds very yay 4Korners, which it is yay 4Korners as well. Because I love my job and I love where we work. But that's how we're treated as professional adults here by our, I almost hesitate to say superiors, because they're superiors in terms of the jobs that they do, but they treat us like equals and they talk to us like equals.
Honestly,
and I think, starting that young is a really good habit.
Yeah, it is. And even just like starting to be able to recognize like, what am I feeling right now? I know it seems simple to be like, oh, I'm feeling mad. But sometimes even just like making the association of like, I'm feeling mad because of this. Or even just expanding. There's not only mad, there's so many different words for mad, or adjectives and things that describe mad. Yeah. So it's very, it seems like it's a small thing, but it's so important when you're able to recognize why. Like the why. Sometimes sometimes you become way too self-aware. But of course that happens. But
and then you have to go lie down for a little bit.
You're like, oh. But it's I've been working with groups, I think now for almost 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, for a long time. And I've seen a difference with the kids. they're all great kids. With me, like I see a difference, and this is not me saying, "Oh, kids these days are terrible." They're not.
No, not even remotely.
There's still a lot of amazing kids. It's different. We have to go about things differently, and I think that kids and consequences, they really don't care for consequences anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's different.
It's different.
It's different.
And I think that comes around again to, you know, the context of their lives changed really rapidly in their parents' lifetime long before they were ever born, but the fallout of it was only happening just after they were born too. And it's, you know, I think it would be too easy, and I think maybe you experienced this as well. Because, you know, education and youth involvement and everything is so critical to my life, both professionally and then even in my home life, because my whole family works in that field. What it often comes down to is it's too easy to make it a blame situation. I find. And maybe you must experience that as well too, and people are trying to pinpoint one particular situation, or like,
I mean, I did it before the internet,
exactly. It's too easy for us to fall into that hole, I think, because and you talk about, like, I really like how you mentioned as well that, you know, the concept of a child or even just a person being mad, that's like a very large umbrella for all of these more nuanced emotions and sentiments as well. And to be able to deconstruct that, it's exhausting. And it takes a lot of, and self-reflection is really tiring, especially if you're not.
Self-care is not supposed to be easy.
No, it's not. And that's a really good way of putting it.
I tell the kids this too, when you're working on yourself, it's not easy.
No.
It's a lot of work. It's most certainly satisfying when you get there and you hit those goals and those excuse me. I know, I felt that coming from before. But yeah, it's definitely, what was I talking about?
Social and emotional learning, and, you know, being able to understand why you're feeling the way that you feel, and that, you know, self-reflection, self-care, these things are not easy. They're not meant to be easy, and they're kind of meant to be exhausting.
You're a very good listener.
Thank you. I try.
But no, self-care is not easy. It's not just like a go into the bathtub and have a bubble bath. You know, it's not like, sometimes it's like what you need.
Sometimes,
but like,
that's what works for people.
Sometimes it's what you need. But I'm like, self-care is really like, it's hard work. It's a lot of reflecting, a lot of doing things that you're not really comfortable with at first.
That's it too. I think the concept of comfort is a major factor as well.
You get comfortable in that feeling.
Yeah. Like, yes, comfortable feels safe, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And you know, and that's something that I had to realize, that you know, the pandemic was such a like life-changing experience for the entire world. But I also wouldn't change a second of my own experience of it, because the amount of self-reflection and that I had to do, because there was nothing else to do. You know, it makes me happy that and I say happy when I mean umbrella term of all these other emotions for it, that I was able to come to 4Korners at the time that I did, after I had become familiar with it. And that, like, I should clarify as well, that never ends. Like, it's not supposed to, like, oh, I fixed everything and now I'm done. Like,
Close
it's good.
Book. Yeah, no.
That's, you know, we're young, but we're old enough to know that that's not how it works. But to know that I got pretty well versed in it, and I made enough of those big reflections before coming into 4Korners, I don't think I would be able to do my job the way that I do if I hadn't had those experiences.
Absolutely.
And I'm certain it's the exact same for you as well, especially having been a 4Korners kid too.
It's funny I say this, but I actually really didn't like kids when I first started.
I find that happens a lot with people who end up doing like the best work with kids as well too.
I felt like I was awkward. And like, if there was like a baby, I was just kind of like, ugh. Like, you know, I was just awkward with it. It's not that I didn't like them. It wasn't like
it was them. Nothing, it wasn't personal.
It was actually more probably a me thing.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, so it is definitely funny because I've been doing it for 11 years, but before that I was like, no, I'm not going to work with kids. And to think now how ingrained I am with working with kids. And you know, you mentioned like that sometimes you don't get to see like the results or like of your work. And I've been fortunate because I've had a couple parents come to me afterwards and tell me how like the program that they in Cell, social emotional learning, like changed their lives. And I'm like, because like I didn't think, like sometimes I do leave and I'm like, man, did I do it justice? You know, like because I'm human. But to hear that and to hear that like some parents spend thousands of dollars for these services, and then 4Korners is a free, mostly free. I mean, there's a $10 membership fee, you know, yearly. So
which is less than nothing when it comes
and
to
it's highly suggested. It's
exactly,
you know, like encouraged, but if you can't, you can't.
Exactly,
you know, we still have these services. But yeah, no, it's
just to know that you and it sounds, you know,
it sounds cheesy.
It sounds cheesy, but
cheesy.
To know that you are actively changing somebody, at least somebody's life,
to me,
is critical.
Social emotional learning is important. I get that. But for me, as long as I could have a group where a kid feels like they belong and they feel like they have a place to be, and then that I could give them that smile for the day, because sometimes you don't know, like, did a kid get a smile today? Yeah. So I always try to be very, like, happy for them, because I'm like, what if they come from a bad situation? Like, I don't know.
I don't know never everything. Know what was going on before they walked through the door.
I think that's why I have a lot of, like, I really try to be present with them, because I just want them to, as much as possible, feel as safe. I can't guarantee it, but because you never know, life is life and accidents happen. But I really just want them to feel like there is a spot where I belong, and I feel like I could talk about my opinions and my feelings without feeling like it's a stupid question or not important. And there's a lot of times where kids, they're talking to adults, and adults, like, I've done it too, where we're like, have no idea what they're talking about. So even if they're trying to tell me, I went to the dollar store and got, like, I don't care. It's important. Yeah. I want to know
if they're telling you about it, then it's, if they feel they want to tell you about it, then it means that it's important to them. And that's, I find that I almost have to wonder if that's still kind of a remnant from, you know, the Victorian, Elizabethan, British way of raising children, which was they're to be seen and not heard. Which, you know, it is such an unfathomable concept for so many people now too, especially now, you know, more often than not, when somebody is having children, it's because they want their children and they love their children. But it's definitely true that, you know, cultural elements can become so ingrained that they become second nature, and they become, you know, you don't even think before doing it, and you don't even think before reacting to a child's behavior, and that, and not even as a parent, just as an adult around children. And it takes a lot to be able to, you know, sit yourself down and think, why am I having this reaction? Because this isn't their problem. Like, my problems are not their problems, and I should not be putting that on them. And I think that the fact that 4Korners and so many other organizations now more and more are being able to approach that, and not necessarily from the historical context of this is specifically, you know, Victorian parenting styles or nothing like that. But it's true that, you know, and children, they're mini-me's. They really are. Like, they pick up on what you're doing, and they learn through play, and the play is often based from observations of adult life. You know, I mean, like, today there's somewhere in this room is like a little kitchenette thing too, or like a dollhouse, or I just spotted it. I was like, over there, it's over there. But and you know, so it's play for them, but they're acting out real life, or what they perceive as real life scenarios. Monkey see, monkey do. Exactly.
Mom is cooking, and the modeling is so important of their development too.
Well, that's it.
I mean, if we go into the psychology of it all, it's really
well, even with my own nephew too, who is turning 5 next month, I think. Oh my gosh. And
That's
I've
crazy.
been looking after him since he was like a month and a half old. And that's exactly it. That I have always spoken to him like he was an adult. Like I personally get uncomfortable with like baby talk in a way.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want to be spoken to like
Yeah.
that. When I was a kid, it made me so angry when people would talk to me like that I was like, well, I'm not going to do that to another child. And then what I found as a result is that if I was making him lunch or I was cleaning up the living room or something, he would follow me around and he would help. You know, okay, maybe he could only lift one toy truck at a time, but hey, he knows that toy truck is supposed to go into the bin because that's where I'm putting his other toys. And it's like it makes me so happy to see that. And when children are encouraged to do that, because it's like, there they go. That's a full person. Yeah, that's a full person learning how to be a person.
It's a human. It's a mini human. I know, it's crazy.
I love coming in here and seeing them running around like that, and you know, and seeing those toys here, like the little kitchenette, and like the toys, like hammer and screwdriver and everything, and knowing that they get the opportunity to just be. Yeah,
just be kids. You're not a kid you're a kid for a very short time of your life.
Yeah.
Be a kid. I feel like kids are trying to grow up too quickly.
Yeah, don't do it.
Trust me. Be a kid. Be a kid. It's good for you.
Yeah. And even if you're an adult now, be a kid. Let yourself be a kid be the kid that you once were or that you never got to be. Yeah. And, you know, if that means, you know, you see a cute stuffed animal or something and it's like,
you like Pokemon,
go for it.
Do it, you know, like,
and it takes a form in so many different ways, but it starts in childhood and the ability to recognize the emotions that go into,
and not to care what other people think.
Not to care what other people think.
I must say that quickly. Don't do what makes you happy, because always someone's gonna have something negative to say about it. Yeah, it's just how life goes. It's unfortunate, and kids could be very mean. Yeah, do what makes you happy. Just do it. Like,
and it's mean, but not malicious. And it's that weird time of life where something can be mean without being malicious.
Exactly.
Like it's the malice of it has like the long-term effects, whereas being mean is just like, hey, you really should not have said that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But it's just I'm just so happy that it gives me confidence that, you know, in the next couple of years when my own kid is, you know, going to be experiencing groups like this, like whether it's through 4Korners, whether it's through school, that they're going to have people like you looking out for them and looking out for their well-being. So we're gonna wrap up pretty shortly. We're coming to the end here. I'm a
blabber.
Oh, you and I both. So to kind of wrap everything up, I always like asking people about, you know, something fun or funny or really memorable that sticks out in their minds about the topic that we're talking about. So in your case, it's the programs that you're doing, it's the children that you work with, and obviously it doesn't have to be an anecdote or anything. Like, we don't share.
I'm like trying to think.
We don't share names or identifying traits, obviously, because these are children. But I am always curious. You always have some of the funniest stories coming out of this. So what's a nice one that you might be able to share with us?
Okay, so this is something that I did actually. And I'm just kind of embarrassed about it. Let me revealing it to everyone. This was when I was at 4Korners.
As a kid.
As a kid.
Okay.
As a kid. And we were supposed, I'm going to try to say this as quickly as possible. So we were supposed to write a message to someone in the group, like anonymously. And it had to be a nice message. So I got the person who I was supposed to say it to. And I knew she played soccer. So I was like, I think you're a good player. Closed it. And then she got it. And then obviously, like, I think you're a good player. She just thought like romantically or whatever, like, oh, no. I think you're a good player. So she's like, who said this? And it was me. And I just kind of was like, oh, like I realized like the error of my ways. Yeah. So if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to I meant soccer player. I just clearly I don't know why. I should have added soccer. I didn't.
And hey, and there's something that you learned through social and emotional learning as a child was
be specific.
Be specific, and context is critical.
Context is important. Things have a lot of different meanings.
So things have a lot of different meanings, and context is key. So everyone, that takes us to the end of the episode. Melissa, thank you so much for coming in and doing this. This was a really fun episode to do for the end of the season. You are doing incredible work as always. It's always a joy getting to talk to you both on camera and off. So everyone, thank you for tuning in for this last episode of Youth Corner Podcast Jeunesse for this season. We had a lot of fun filming this season. It was a little bit crazy, but we had a good time with it. And we are really looking forward to seeing you guys in the next season. Bye.